So facets are essentially visualizations of your query.
And we have four types of visualization. The first four types of chart. The first one is the line chart, and the second and third one are the histogram, and the last one is the pie chart. So for now, we're going to start with creating a line chart. So for example, if we want to see the sentiment changes across time, like whether people talk about the bird flu more negatively recently, we can create a line chart and see how the sentiments evolved. And we click the cog icon, and the x-axis is the date, and the y variable is which the default is lexicoder negative and positive. So we don't need to change anything, and we can run it in the dashboard again.
So it might take a bit longer because it's making a graph as well. And then once it's been generated, we can click on the graph, and it'll take us to this page for the plot. We can see automatically it's put lexicoder negative and lexicoder positive across the dates that we have specified. On one side, it says also the sentiment points, while on the other side, it's the articles, number of articles and words. Up here, we can also activate and deactivate certain numbers. So we can see number of articles, there are certain spikes, especially in the last about 2 years. But if we want to look at specifically the net lexicoder negative and positive values, we can see how those compare. And we can also adjust the bar down here if we wanted to look more closely, for example, in the past 5 years, because we notice that there is a bit more of a spike in articles, and we can see how that lines up. So here, for example, there's a bit more of a spike, higher spike in negative versus positive. Here, there's a bit more of a positive versus negative. And so you can use this to better visualize and understand your results. To save this data, to save this plot, you can either save it as also a TSV file via this downturn arrow, or you can also save it by clicking on the 3 lines on the side and download as a PNG, JPEG, PDF, or SVG file.
So this is all for the line chart, and now we can try to create another type of chart. Let's try histogram for this time. So for example, if we want to know what countries are mentioned when we talk about the bird flu, we can look at the histogram chart. This time we click the cog icon as well, and we change the status variable to country variable, and then we save it and run it again.
Also going to delete the sentiment value because it might take a bit longer to generate 2 plots at once. So now it's already generated the histogram. We click on it, and of course the United States has the most amount of articles because in our initial query we had specified it as where we want to find our articles, but other countries have also been mentioned, and you can hover over each bar to see how many articles mention these countries.
And we can also add another layer on this plot. For example, if we want to see how many times each country is mentioned in each year, we can add a date variable on this histogram. Let's go to the facet and click the clock again. And this time we add a date variable, which is the first icon. And we can see there is a y-axis added to the histogram. We can change the date that we want to access, and we can also change the date variable, which is default at month, but this time we can change it to year because we have 10 years, so we don't want to make it too messy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we save it, and then we run it again.
And it might take a few moments to generate a more complex plot. But once it's been generated, we can once again click on it. And we see basically similar shapes to the histogram before, but with more details. So for example, over in the United States, we can hover over it, and we see that the most amount of articles are from 2024. And we can hover over these other ones and see which ones have the most. For example, in China, it seems that in 2021, they've had the most articles in which they are mentioned. But this gives us a level of more detail to our facet. We hope that this video series has been helpful in understanding how to use Archer, and thank you so much for watching. And thank you, Victor, for helping me create these queries.